I have asked each of the other four ambassadors on the stage here to say a couple of sentences, and let me just introduce them very quickly. Walter Cutler, going from my left across, Walter Cutler served as U.S. Ambassador in Riyadh from 1984 to 1989. Chas Freeman, from 1989 to 92. James Oberwetter from 04 to 07. And Bob Jordan from 02 to 03. So they were all very different, some before the time period that was just discussed, some after, and some during. But they all have different insights and something quickly to say, and then we'll go to the Q&A. Ambassador Cutler.
Thank you. I just wanted to scotch a rumor here. Ambassador Al-Jubeir mentioned the meeting between Roosevelt and King Abdulaziz in 1945. I just want to tell you, I was not there. You may be the new guy on the block. I'm the old guy on the block. Very quickly, the word, and it's come up here a number of times, dialogue. Dialogue and engagement. And I entirely agree with you. You have to keep in touch, as so many of you here do quite regularly, with the kingdom to see how the changes are taking place. I go back every 2 years, thank God, because the stereotypes of a few years ago, particularly after 9/11, have so radically changed and for the good. Let me just say dialogue, all the kinds of exchanges. What King Abdullah is doing, dialogue within the kingdom. What we are doing with strategic dialogue between our two countries, which goes on. All of that is really what I think gives me confidence in not only the present but the future of the relationship. And one last thing, you mentioned 21,000 Saudi students in this country. Think of that. Think of how many there were right after 9/11. And it's so important to have them coming to our country. All we need now is more of American students going to the kingdom and others, Americans going to the kingdom. And John, Duke Anthony, I congratulate you for keeping up that flow of educators and others. It's so important. Thank you.
Ambassador Freeman.
The late Arthur Goldberg, when he was ambassador to the UN, observed that diplomats approach every issue with an open mouth. And I'll get my chance to do that tomorrow. So I'm going to yield the balance of my time to diplomats, with only remarking this, that I am now a businessman, and thanks to all the free advertising I got earlier this year, my business in the Middle East is prospering.
Ambassador Oberwetter.
I'm glad to hear that, Charles. I think the focus on education, that's the remarks I want to make. As Ambassador Cutler has pointed out, and Ambassador Al-Jubeir, when I arrived after 9/11, I got there in 04, there were about 3,000 Saudi students left in the United States. And you've heard the number today of 21,000 Saudis back because of agreements between our two countries that allow for this exchange of students. And the King of the Kingdom should be heartily commended for what he has done in providing scholarships to his students to come not only to the United States, but to other countries around the world and to become exposed to our systems of government. As Walt said, now it's time for us to begin the exchange in the other way. But the focus with KAUST, what the King is doing, nothing is of greater importance to the relationships between our two countries than the focus on education. Thank you.
Ambassador Jordan.
I would simply say briefly that actions speak louder than words. I was very impressed with President Obama's speech in Cairo. I was actually in Dubai when he gave it. But I got to thinking that most of the words he spoke were exactly the same words that George W. Bush spoke. And the difference in what will be the proof of the pudding is what is the action that is undertaken in both contexts. We have a unique opportunity at this moment, and I think it needs to be seized. King Abdullah is a great example of action speaking louder than words. He is on airplanes constantly. He is engaging in shuttle diplomacy. And in the midst of the opening of this grand new university, KAUST, there was a very popular imam in Saudi Arabia who was critical of the mixing of men and women on the campus. This is sort of like Pat Robertson or Billy Graham saying something like this. The king fired him, and it's like a president firing Billy Graham or Pat Robertson. King Abdullah has made things happen. He continues to make things happen, and I think we need to applaud him for that.
Well, we've got time for a couple of questions. I'm going to take the prerogative of, that I get from being here and ask the first question. And as I mentioned, I'm sort of about business, so it relates to business between the two countries. You know, the World Bank put out a report here recently that, you know, ranks countries by which is the best country, the ease of doing business in various countries. And, you know, everybody would, you know, you might expect, or you might have preconceived ideas, talking about preconceived ideas as to who would be where on this list. The U.S. certainly wasn't number one, but I think it was in the top 3 or 4. And I think a lot of preconceptions might have Saudi Arabia quite a long way down the list. Saudi Arabia was number 13 in the world in terms of countries' ease of doing business. Now, that's the good news. You know, the bad news is in the details there were some things that were very, very good and were number 1 in a bunch of areas. And there were some areas where it wasn't very good. I'm not going to disclose what those were, but I really was going to ask the question to the panelists, you know, what are the strengths and what are the weaknesses in our business relationships, and what can we do in the business community to, I mean, we're doing a lot going on, but there's a heck of a lot more needs to be done. So what can we do to enhance these business relationships between the two countries? Because I'm a believer that those kinds of relationships are the things that lead, or can lead, to people understanding each other better and to people getting on with each other a lot better and to, frankly, all the things that we want in life. In terms of peace and prosperity. Maybe Ambassador Jubeir, maybe I can throw it at you.
I think our objective is to be among the top 10 most competitive economies by the end of 2010, and hopefully and God willing we'll be able to succeed. I think the economic reforms that took place in Saudi Arabia over the last 10, 12 years, including in particular Saudi Arabia's accession to the World Trade Organization, have radically and positively changed the business environment in the kingdom. New commercial laws were introduced, new commercial courts, new regulations, lower taxes, more attractions to foreign investors in the kingdom. All of this put together led to an increase, a tremendous increase in the confidence of foreign investors in the Saudi economy and in the ease with which foreign investors can enter the Saudi market and compete. And the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is one of the top 20 economies in the world. It's a very competitive market and a very open market. So you put the two together and you have and what you see is a tremendous increase in the percentage of foreign investment, direct foreign investment in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. You see it with American companies, you see it with European companies. Everything is essentially running on all cylinders. And while somebody used the example of the proof of the pudding is in the eating, well, the proof of the success of these economic reforms is in the reaction generated from investors, both Saudi and foreign investors who have flocked to Saudi Arabia to invest. More areas of the Saudi economy were opened up for foreign investment and local investment, and people took advantage of it, whether it's the gas sector, whether it's petrochemicals. Virtually almost every aspect of our economy is open for doing business.